Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. It is always a wonderful opportunity and a true privilege to stand in the House of Commons and represent my amazing riding of Peterborough, Kawartha. Okay, so here we are. Here we are, and what are we doing today in the House of Commons? You know, I often think the folks at home watching must feel like they're just watching an episode of Young and the Restless. You know, in the 3 years since I've been elected, they could turn on Parleview or CPAC, turn it off for a couple months, a year even, turn it back on, and here we are, still talking about incompetence and corruption, a lack of accountability, a lack of transparency, division in our country that has never reached this level in my lifetime of 45 years. So what's happened here in the House of Commons is Parliament has basically been brought to a halt because the Liberals are refusing to turn over documents that the Conservatives are demanding they do. Well, what are these documents and what are we talking about? It's called the Green Slush Fund. So it's based on a Sustainable Development Technology Canada, or SDTC is what you will hear the acronym used for in this. So this is a green slush fund, and what it is it's supposed to be for companies to apply to this fund. It's a $1 billion fund to invest in green technologies or green businesses. So what does that mean? Well, a whistleblower came before committee, and I think this is a really important piece of this discussion. Many bureaucrats, many people have to go to work, and maybe they're privy to some very important information. And at the end of the day, and our job is really no different, you have to put your head down on the pillow and be comfortable with your moral compass of what you're actually doing. Well, the bureaucrats underneath this fund, underneath this Prime Minister, couldn't do that any longer. And so they came forward to committee, and they are called what's called a whistleblower. And they said, there is serious corruption happening. And I'm going to read you some of the testimony that was put forward. These are quotes. I think the Auditor General's investigation was more of a cursory review. I don't think the goal and mandate of the Auditor General's office is to actually look into criminality. I'm not surprised by the fact that they haven't found anything criminal because they're not looking at intent. If their investigation was focused on intent, of course they would find the criminality. Another quote, I know the federal government, like the minister, has continued saying there was no criminal intent and nothing was found, but I think the committee would agree that they are not to be trusted on this situation. I would happily agree to whatever the findings are by the RCMP, but I would say that I wouldn't trust that there isn't any criminality unless the RCMP is given full authority to investigate. Another quote, again, if you bring in the RCMP and they do their investigation and they find something, or they don't, I think the public would be happy with that. But I don't think we should have to leave it to the current federal government or the ruling party to make those decisions. Let the public see what's there. Another quote, just as I was always confident that the Auditor General would confirm the financial mismanagement at SDTC, I remain equally confident that the RCMP will substantiate the criminal activities that occurred within this organization. So the documents we're demanding that be handed over, and the Speaker has ruled in favour of this, the opposition parties alongside of us, everyone except the Liberals have agreed to what we've asked for. These are documents that outline what has happened and what corruption has happened. This is critical. Why? Because it is your money, not you, Madam Speaker, but the people watching at home. The government doesn't have any money. It has taxpayers' money. And there should be a pretty strong understanding and agreement that whomever is in government is not abusing that money, wasting that money, or giving it to their friends and family for them to get rich and not actually doing any work. So it's a very simple ask. And I want to read a couple things into the record here. But I think what I would really ask people at home to think about, this is a lot of procedural conversation about parliamentary privilege and this and that. But the question you need to ask yourself is, why do these documents exist in the first place? Why would we have a government in power that would have not just misused, but corruption, and what's the word I want to use? It's not, they have given taxpayer money to their friends and family. Why are we even having that discussion? That is the biggest question I would have. And if somebody was innocent and they're truly here to represent people and they were elected to actually ensure transparency and accountability, they would say, oh my gosh, here, let's hand these unredacted documents over to ensure accountability and transparency. Why do these documents exist in the first place? What are they hiding? How did we get here? How did we get to this level of corruption that hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars have gone to nothing to improve our life, in fact, make it significantly worse? That is the question that needs to be asked today. So the Auditor General of Canada found that the Prime Minister has turned the Sustainable Development Technology Canada SDTC fund into a slush fund for Liberal insiders. And in this report specifically, the Auditor General found that 58 million of 10 ineligible projects that on occasions couldn't demonstrate an environmental benefit or development of green technology. 58 million. Sounds a lot like the Arrive Scam app number, doesn't it? 334 million over 186 cases to projects in which the board members had a conflict of interest. And the Auditor General didn't even do all 400. So can you imagine how many more there are? Well, let's not imagine. Let's get the documents and let's see.
Hear, hear.
The Auditor General made it clear that the blame for this scandal falls on the Prime Minister's the Minister of Industry, can't say names in the House of Commons, who did not sufficiently monitor the contracts that were given to the Liberal insiders. So this is obviously very, very serious, what we're dealing with. And I think it's important to go back to how did we even get here. I want to read you a quote, Madam Speaker, into the record. And I want you to guess at home, who do you think said it? Here we go. Political leadership is about raising the bar on openness and transparency. As a member of Parliament, as a leadership candidate, and now as leader of my party, I have taken every opportunity to raise the bar when it comes to openness and accountability. As leader of my party, I made raising the bar on transparency and openness my first major policy announcement so that Canadians can better hold their leaders accountable. For me, transparency isn't a slogan or a tactic, it's a way of doing business. I trust Canadians, I value their opinions, and now that I've heard them, I'm going to act. June 2013. Any guesses who said that? Any guesses? Anyone? The Prime Minister himself. Oh, how the tides have turned. And I want to read you another one, because they're just so good. They're just so good. I'm just going to keep going here. Get your popcorn, folks, because we're here for a while. I think we're going to have to embark on a completely different style of government. We could interpret that a lot of ways, couldn't we? He said, a government that both accepts its responsibilities to be open and transparent, but also a population that doesn't mind lifting the veil to see how sausages are made, that there is a dual responsibility in changing towards more open and transparent functioning that really will go to a deep shift in how government operates. Any guesses who said that? Anyone? Oh, same guy, Prime Minister, April 2015. Oh, another quote from April 2015. Once I looked at the trend lines in democracy, the empowering of citizens and activists, I know that the government of the future is going to be very, very different than the governments of the past. Well, it sure is different, Madam Speaker. It sure is different. Because since I've been here, it is another day, another scandal. I have never seen the country in the state that it is in. And for anyone asking, they'll say, why do you have to be so hard on the Prime Minister? Why do you have to do that? Because opposition's role is to ensure that the government is doing the best for the people of Canada. It is to bring balance to this place. That Prime Minister has shown he is incapable of balance. That Prime Minister has shown that it is rules for thee, but not for me. And I want to go through the list of scandals. Again, grab your popcorn, because there's a lot of them. The McKinsey scandal. The Auditor General of Canada report criticizes that the Prime Minister government for awarding $200 million in contracts to McKinsey without proper guidelines. 90% of contracts were awarded without clear justification, with many lacking defined purposes or outcomes. In some cases, the Canada Border Services Agencies altered requirements to allow McKinsey to qualify. 70% of contracts were sole-sourced with no explanation for bypassing competitive processes. McKinsey operated without necessary security clearances in 13 out of 17 contracts. The firm's past failures include involvement in the Canada Infrastructure Bank and contributing to the opioid crisis that has killed 42,000 Canadians since 2015, Madam Speaker, in which they paid $600 million in damages. Then we have the trip to Jamaica. The MP's, the Prime Minister's $84,000 holiday vacation in Jamaica, a gift from family friends. Rules for thee, but not for me. Then we went to Montana. He went to Montana there for $228,000, not including the salaries of the RCMP officers. Okay, we're not done yet. Another trip to Jamaica in April. That one was $162,000. And who can forget a Rive scam? I know my friend here from Brantford Branch sure doesn't forget that one, where we had to bring forward a government agency, GC Strategies. Anybody know what GC stands for? Government of Canada. $60 million that went to a company that doesn't even exist, that two guys were able to build in a weekend for under, what was it? $250,000. Taxpayer money. And you want to know why the cost of living is out of control? Madam Speaker, we do not have a revenue problem in this country. We have a Prime Minister with a spending and corruption problem in this country. Let's not forget about the $6,000 a night hotel room where he bussed into song at the Queen's funeral. Or who could ever forget the We charity? The Prime Minister announced We Charity would manage $912 million Canada Student Service, the $912 million Canada Student Service grant, and the Ethics Commissioner initiated an investigation on July 3rd, 2020 into that decision. But probably my most favorite scandal that stands today and really speaks to the character of what you're dealing with and the sort of rot that we've seen in this country is SNC-Lavalin. The Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion investigated allegations that the Prime Minister's office pressured former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould regarding SNC-Lavalin. Raybould resigned from Cabinet, and Principal Secretary Gerald Butts denied the claims before resigning. Jane Philpott also resigned in protest. In August 2019, the Commissioner found that the Trudeau and his officials had breached ethics rules. Had breached ethics rules by attempting to undermine federal prosecutors' decisions. SNC-Lavalin has been charged with fraud and corruption in connection with payments of nearly $48 million to public officials in Libya under Muammar Gaddafi's government, and allegations it defrauded Libyan organization of an estimated $130 million. 2 Liberal ministers, female, might I add, took the fall for that one. That's another one of these classic things. I can't wait to see who's going to take the fall for these documents, because they will be turned over, because we're not going to stop. Let's have that honest conversation. These unredacted documents, it is, can you imagine, Madam Speaker, to put this into context, if somebody from CRA phoned you and said, we think you violated tax law, we need you to hand over documents, and you said no, what would happen? What would happen? Would they just leave you and say, oh, okay, no problem? Or say you handed them over documents, but you blacked out everything that was important that they wanted to know. Would they be okay with that? Oh, so the general public has to follow every single rule that the government imposes on them while they tax them into poverty. But the government and this Prime Minister, no, not us. We're not responsible for following any rules. And you know, this mentality bleeds down into the entire front rows and benches, but not just that, into society. We have a societal blister in this country of a lack of accountability, a lack of transparency. It bleeds into our public safety when criminals have no consequences and crime is rampant, because it's all over the place. And then the erosion of trust in institutions, Madam Speaker. When you erode trust, you create chaos, because there is no relationship. It is the most detrimental thing you can do. And the people do not trust the government, nor should they. I'm not even done reading half of the scandals. And he's only been in power for 9 years. You know, the other important piece to talk about this is the green slush fund, and in itself, what it truly is. So, give me a minute here. I've got to find a piece of paper that I'm looking for that I can't. Oh, I don't have it on me. Okay. So, we found out today, oh shoot, I'm going to try and find it, that the PBO has now said that the carbon tax, just as Conservatives have been saying from day one, is just this big scam. It's driving up the cost of everything. Canadians are paying more out than they are getting back. And the PBO confirmed this yet again. You know, you have truckers who testify in committee that are saying they're paying $20,000 in carbon tax. What do you think is going to happen to the cost of food? Why do you think we have housing that has doubled under this Prime Minister? That is what I would like to know. Because this green, environmental friendly initiative that they stand on all the time, and they tout that they're the most environmentally friendly, they're the most environmentally conscious party, is all a facade. It's pandering. It's pandering. That carbon tax is not an environmental plan, it's a tax plan. You literally had the Minister of Mental Health stand up in this House and say that we wanted the planet to burn, only to later find out that the Minister of Environment prevented 50 firefighters, 20 fire trucks from fighting the fire in Jasper while it burned.
Shameful.
That is the gist of what we're talking about. Madam Speaker, I see you're giving me time to wrap up. Is that correct? I want to end with this. The undercurrent of all of these issues, the undercurrent of all of this is, I used to worry, how are we going to make this money work? Well, I just found you $400 million. This government wastes money. We will make life more affordable for Canadians. We will restore hope, and we will make housing, food, and groceries affordable again. Thank you, Madam Speaker.